Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday and welcome to Tech Tuesday here on INE Live. I am your host, Catherine Brown. Today is all about motivation, inspiration, and what it takes to achieve success in your dream career. We have the perfect guest for all of this, whether that's cybersecurity, cloud networking, or really anything in the tech industry. You will find value in hearing Lily Clark's story. I know I find a ton of value in just listening to what she has to say. We are sitting down with her today, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Before we get started, I want to catch you up on what we do every time we stream here on INE Live. Let you know we are streaming live right now across many social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe with notifications turned on for whatever platform you are using so you can stay in the loop when we do go live. And of course, we want you to get involved, talk to us, talk to others, get going in that chat there. We encourage you to ask questions, to bring your questions. If you have a comment, just drop it in the comments there, and we will check them out. If you have a question, do us a favor, drop a Q at the beginning so that our moderators and our teams can find them very easily as we're going over and talking to Lily. And we'll get to, of course, as many questions as we can today. And with that, we want to bring in Lily Clark. She is a familiar face, certainly at INE and with INE Live as well. She worked here at INE for several years. First as a client success rep and then as a consumer communications specialist in the marketing department. But actually what Lily fell in love with was cybersecurity. And as she was working her day job at INE, she started taking INE training, eventually earning her EJPT certification. And that really kicked things off for Lily. Since then, her career has absolutely taken flight. She's currently an offensive security consultant with Echelon Risk and Cyber. Lily, we're so excited, first of all, for your where you are in your career and everything. And thank you for joining us today on the show.
Hi, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. It's like a homecoming.
I know, it's great to see you again. I was thinking, well, this will be great. It will just be a chance to catch up, see what you're up to.
Exactly.
Well, first, I want to for the audience's purposes and quite frankly for mine, I want to hear a little about what you're doing right now, what your job involves at Echelon, what your position is, and kind of what you're doing in your day-to-day.
Sure. So I'm working at Echelon Risk and Cyber, like you mentioned. And we believe that security and privacy are human rights. And with our suite of services, we're built to protect them. So that's anything from defensive, advisory, vCISO services, and offensive, which I'm a part of. So a lot of my day-to-day is testing applications. So I'm primarily on web apps right now. So depending on the day, I am communicating with clients, I am testing applications, or I'm writing reports.
So let's dig into that just a little bit. So what kind of applications are you testing?
Right. So primarily web applications. We do internal pen testing as well, but I'm not leading those quite yet. So mostly the web apps right now is what I'm focusing on.
Awesome. Are you enjoying yourself?
Well, of course. And it helps having a team that's so supportive too. It feels like we're all in the same boat, and we get so excited being able to test a new application and seeing where we can go with it.
Yeah, that's something I certainly find in the tech industry, is that there is so much passion driving people, more than other industries that I've worked in. But I love the passion. I want to get to your backstory a little bit and kind of fill people in. And now that we know what you're doing now, just kind of start from back it up a little bit. So how did you first realize that you enjoyed cybersecurity? Even because you weren't working in it, right? You were a customer success rep.
Right. So I was working, Elon Security was mostly the company I was working for. So when I first started at INE, I was the sole customer support and client success rep for eLearn Security. And so a lot of our clients were, of course, students of cybersecurity and pen testing. And that's actually where I first even learned that hacking had anything to do with cybersecurity, because that's not layperson's knowledge. Now that I'm in the industry, I'm like, obviously, that makes so much sense, but it's not something I realized before. And so, it helped me connect with our clients, understanding their daily struggles just by learning it. But also, of course, it was encouraged by management that we try it out for ourselves.
Sure, eat our own dog food, right?
Exactly. And, that felt right for me from an integrity standpoint as well. I didn't want to just tell people what to do and be copying and pasting all of this information from our instructors without understanding at least some of what I'm saying to make sure that I'm guiding them in the right direction. But yes, I recall our management, there was some friendly competition as to who would get certified first. And I am a competitive person. So at first, I will say, like, it wasn't an instant love. I wasn't that familiar with computers. I had never been on a terminal before. I'd never used Linux before. So all of that learning curve took a little bit of time. But after a little bit, once I was getting into that third section of the PTS course, when you start actually exploiting things, that's when it got a lot of fun. And that's when I was telling people, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is the trajectory. And I was pretty open about that, even at INE. This is where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. Again, we worked in the same department for a while, and I remember when you came over to the marketing department, because you transitioned from client success into consumer communication specialist, doing a lot with social media. And I remember even then, as you were sort of still like going through all of this, you were very, very open about the fact that, you were falling in love with cyber. I have to bring up a couple of these comments because I love them. Bob writes, Lily Clark, the EJPT queen, is back. Yes, you can claim that. Put on your crown, girl. And Mark Harvey writes, I actually took the EJPT because of Lily Clark. So that's awesome. Apparently I cannot talk today, so forgive me, but that is awesome. Awesome, Mark Harvey. Fantastic. And really, that's one of the reasons why we thought it was so important to bring you on the show, Lily, because your journey, I think, is so relatable to so many people who are going through this, whether they're in the process of making a total career change, whether they're in high school, whether they're in college, whether they're in their mid-20s, whatever people are doing. The fact that you came to this industry kind of with, I guess it was almost a surprise to you, right? Is that fair to say? It was almost a surprise to you that you kind of found yourself in it?
Completely. Yeah, no, I had never pictured myself as a hacker working with computers. If you Google hacker, like, probably not my face that's coming up. You're probably seeing a black hoodie. Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, it's just not something that I had particularly considered for myself until I realized that it was doable. The resources are out there, and, take some time to learn them, and you can do it.
So I want to push you a little bit on that. You obviously did it, right? You're working a day job, you have other responsibilities, you did this studying at night. I think, as you said, it kind of started out as, okay, this is something that, I need to know for my job. But then it sounds like it kind of went beyond that for you, right? It became like, okay, I'm actually super interested in this. But the studies are pretty demanding, really depending on which track you take. But in general, I mean, you went for the EJPT, and it's pretty demanding. How do you balance that working full-time, studying, and you did it, it's not like you took 5 years to do it, right? Like, you did it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a great question. I am not a balance queen, if I'm anything.
You're a cyber EJPT queen. You are an EJPT queen.
Yeah, not quite balanced. Yeah, there were definitely times where I would just binge my studies, and it wasn't always the healthiest, let's be real. But the cool thing about these self-paced studies is there really isn't that timeline to it. So you can binge and then take a little break, and then binge and then take a little break. I was highly fueled by competition at first. And when I feel a little competitive, I am going to binge my studies just to get a leg up on the competition. But then past that, when I joined the community, I got on Discord, I got on LinkedIn. I saw other people really passionate and studying in their free time, on nights, on weekends, and I wasn't alone doing it, and I think that helped as well.
Yeah. So when I guess when you were doing that kind of binge break, or binge later load, I guess, binge later load, were you ever concerned, or did you ever find yourself like forgetting stuff that you had learned, and having to go back and kind of repeat those studies? That's one thing that I personally am always like worried about, is if I don't have all the time in the world to do it right now, I worry that I'm going to start and then lose it and have to go back and double back.
Yeah, and I do that. I double back all the time. But I think there's value in that too. I think there's value in reviewing what you've learned a little bit later and consistently doing that. I think that's all part of the process. So I think that's just kind of a mindset shift, maybe. It's what I tell
So
myself. That's totally fine and normal.
so what were your what were your friends' reactions when you started thinking, hey, I think I'm gonna go from client success to marketing to I'm gonna be a hacker? Like, were they like, wow, we never saw this coming? Or, were they fully supportive of your journey, or kind of like, what was their reaction?
Yeah, I felt support from pretty much everyone. Family, they didn't really get it, which is understandable. Like, no one is technical in my family, so they were just like, "Oh, cool." Eyes glossing over, do not care. Like friends as well. I remember when I was like going to DEF CON, my best friend, she was like, "Oh, have fun at your nerd convention." That's fair. That's fair. And then my boyfriend, he's a software engineer, so he's fully embedded in the tech space, and he was really excited for me. So we never really studied together or anything, but he would see me and he's like, "Okay, I'm proud of you. Keep going, keep going." But yeah, I mean, honestly, my friends, they didn't really care. So I made new friends that did.
There you go. And hence the importance of community and getting involved with, with others in the community to draw on them
Exactly.
for their support and knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mark,
exactly.
Mark is cracking me up back in Twitter. He says he feels the same way about studying. It's like I've forgotten more about IT than I know at any given time. You can probably relate to that.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
Yeah. So you mentioned your managers, and there was sort of some friendly competition among managers and colleagues. Did you feel that? I mean, obviously, like, look, we're at an IT company, right? We're at an IT training company, so there's probably within INE where you were working at the time, probably a little bit of a leg up in terms of like understanding and giving support for that, wanting to go pursue something different. But did you feel that support? And then I would say, to the second part of that question, how important is that, getting that buy-in from managers, from friends, from others who can support you to like actually completing a journey like this?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I felt that support for the most part. Of course, obviously, yes, I was working at an IT training company, so that was easier to get that buy-in from my company.
Right.
I will say something that was kind of hard to grapple with, but I tried to be honest about, was the job I was doing. wasn't my career of choice. And I was honest about it, but it's hard to say out loud when you're doing that and that's what you're getting paid to do. And it's just not your passion and you don't particularly want to grow in that area. I often found that I was less motivated sometimes, but I was like more motivated outside of work to study more. But that was a hard balance for me because, like I said, I was always very honest. Like this is not my end goal. My end goal is to be a pen tester. Like I want to be out in the field. So that was a bit harder of a balance to strike.
Yeah, and kind of once you realize that, right? Like once you realize, okay, this is, or maybe you knew that going in, this is not my dream job. But then once you kind of realize, hey, this path might actually be what, the path for me. How did you go about making that transition from marketing to cybersecurity? I know it's tough. I know it's tough. I'm not going to let you off the hook here because even before the show today, you were talking about how hard you worked, and I was there sort of on the fringes. So I really want you to get honest here and candid and talk about, how difficult that transition was, because you even had the support of working for an IT training company. But it was no picnic for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was fun. It was totally fun. No, the transition honestly started when I was in client success. There was a point in time where I was like, I just want to, like, I wanted to be done with the business side of things. And I was like, I would just want to go out into the field. I will stop everything that I'm doing now and just apply for jobs. And I didn't do that. Instead, I talked internally with the leaders, and it was actually Richard's idea that I moved to the marketing side because I was already fully embedded in the community. So that's how I became, what even was my title? Consumer communications.
I think that was it. Richard, by the way, being the CEO, which I think speaks volumes for the kind of company that INE is, that a client success rep can go to the CEO and express something like that, and then have it work. But anyway, just wanted to give that background. So yeah, so Richard, little plug. And also, he has told me numerous times that you were completely awesome, and he was like, "We'll make up whatever job we have to make up to keep Lily Clark because she's fantastic." So it was very mutual. So you go to Richard and you say, "All right, this is like kind of not what I'm feeling." You go to your boss or manager, or whatever, and the reaction is.
The reaction, yeah. So I was very fortunate with that, and lesson learned there is be honest with everyone about your intentions and what you want, because you might just get what you want if you do that. And so from there, I was able to be in the community more and more, and I kept my intentions stated from the beginning. I want to be a pen tester, and I put that on LinkedIn, on Twitter, wherever, without, undermining my current job. I tried to be sure not to do that. But from my understanding, how it was told to me was I had put out into the world that I had told my mom that I wanted to be a pen tester. And my current CEO, Dan, he saw that and he said bet. And he reached out to me and asked for my resume. And then it was at DEF CON that I had my interview with my current manager. I wasn't working at the time. It was off hours. I was running a DEF CON for IE.
All right. No one from IE is going to DEF CON this year. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
But no, we just hit it off, and it seemed like a fit. My skill set seemed to fit into what Echelon wanted at the time. And so that's how that first jump happened. And now I'm still just adjusting. I will say the hardest part externally, like as far as, socials go and whatever, a lot of people knew me as, a non-technical person. I was doing marketing, I was doing client success. And sometimes people will like say that is to prove that I shouldn't be where I am and whatnot. So that's been difficult, like externally, and of course that affects me and my imposter syndrome, which I feel all the time because I am still new. But honestly, like my team has been so supportive and really encouraging, and they teach me so much all the time that as far as the job goes itself, they've made the transition a lot easier than I would have expected.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to so and I'm actually just curious about this. When you went over, since you already had that experience working for an IT company, right? Like, and you had some of the lingo, like regardless of whether you had taken courses or not, you had some of the lingo down, right? And some of the industry knowledge. In your in I guess the job that you went over to, which I guess your current job, your position, is that an entry level position? Is it a mid level position? Kind of what level did you slide over to? Because you at that point had already been studying for more than a year. You had completed the EJPT. Like, what level were you able to start at?
I am very much entry level as far as pen testers go. So yeah, my title doesn't say entry level offensive security consultant, but that's what I am. So this is my first security job, and pretty much that means they're not going to give me a ton of work that I can't do. I have not proven that I can do, but you know, I get my hands dirty and I get to work on a lot of projects, and I get to learn daily.
And that's something that you in particular are very good at, right? Like you are like a sponge, right? I feel like you soak up everything, and then you're so enthusiastic, and your enthusiasm is very contagious that you then are just able to just spread that knowledge everywhere. I'm looking through some of the comments, and Armando Peralta says, yes, for imposter syndrome, you rock, because that is something that absolutely everyone feels, right? Having to overcome that on a daily basis. And certainly when you're making a transition from one job or one career path into another. How do you battle that? How do you beat that?
I don't know if I'm beating that. I think mostly I just have to recognize it and call it out for what it is. No one knows all the answers. I mean, unless you're just a prodigy genius, which there are a few of those people, and I respect you and I salute you, but I am not you. But I just have to recognize that I don't know all of the things, and I can't learn all of the things overnight. And if I am trying to keep up with current trends. I am learning more. Doing my job. So I just need to keep reassuring myself, those daily affirmations in the mirror, but that's that, not beating it.
There you go. And sometimes that's what it is, right? It's managing it. It's learning to live with it. It's learning to battle past it every single day, wake up and say, I am good enough. Right. Or even better than good enough. But, you know, a lot of people identify with that. And just looking through the comments, you know, a lot of people are praising you for your candor and for, just saying thank you. Rianne, your honesty and transparency is amazing. Cyber Lola, imposter syndrome, probably the only constant presence in our cyber lives. Bob yes. Lily's story just shows how INE training can impact our career. It is very relevant in the tech industry. And so, you know, again, just to kind of reiterate that, so many people find relevance in your story and in what you've gone through. Philip Velasquez asked a question I thought was very interesting. Do you find any connections or similarities between marketing and cybersecurity?
Yeah. So I work for a consulting firm. So, I mean, we're constantly marketing on the daily our services. So that's an innate part of the job. Past that, I mean, you just kind of always have to have that marketing brain, in my opinion. That's just part of it.
Do you what's been so surprising, or what has surprised you the most? Rianne asked this. What surprised you the most about transitioning into a more technical role from, from a more business focused role, I guess?
Honestly, like, this sounds kind of silly, but I was very much expecting that everyone expected me to know everything. And I realize now that I'm in a technical role that that's just not the case, and no one knows everything. And instead, it's a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of figuring it out, a lot of troubleshooting. That I don't know why that's surprising. It shouldn't be, because my studies were like a lot of troubleshooting, but professionally, that's what it is too. And it's just part of the job. Also, something that kind of surprised me, but again, probably shouldn't, is just how supportive and kind and understanding people can be. It's not just those, those larger than life personalities that think they're better than everyone. It's a lot of humble, kind people.
You're talking about in the industry, or just in your, just in general, humanity as
Well,
a whole?
and I guess people that I've worked with, I don't feel like people are trying to, test me with gotcha questions, and I don't know why in my head I'm like, oh my gosh, they're about to ask me something I just have no clue about, and it's just not the case. And it's like totally fine to say I don't know and say like, let's figure this out, or do you have the answer?
Yeah. What do you wish you had known before starting your cyber journey?
So much more. Everything.
That's fair.
I'm guessing you're asking technically, because technically I wish I knew it all.
No, I just mean just in general, really. Like, do you wish you had known that it was going to be this hard? Do you wish you had known it was not going to be as hard as you think? What do you, and it doesn't have to be one thing, but what are some things that, like, looking at the younger, Lily Clark 2 years ago, 2 years and change ago, like what do you wish, looking back on your journey, that someone could have like slipped you a piece of paper and been like, hey, by the way, you're going to need to know this?
Honestly, that those binge study nights aren't going to end, and you really got to learn to enjoy it, because that's your life once you're in too. That was my biggest thing. Enjoy the process.
Awesome. I know. I just want to take a second to like let that sink in, because a lot of people have been commenting on what you mentioned, that binge break cycle, and showing appreciation for you being very transparent on it, because it sounds like a lot of people are going through the same thing, right? And it can be perceived as unhealthy, or it can be perceived as, even you said it, maybe not the healthiest of habits, but a lot of people identify. A lot of people identify with it, right? And it's good to know from your perspective that, like, it doesn't stop, right? It keeps going.
Right. So, maybe if you're not in that cycle, figure out what's working for you and keep that. Because I can't seem to break out of it.
Look, it sounds like it's working for you. So, what are you studying right now?
Oh gosh. Right now, I don't know. I'm just diving further into the web app stuff. So I actually still use INE, and sometimes I'll just like pull it up and I'm like, what's the new course? What can I watch? I really liked Brian's security engineering course that he came out with recently, and I love Alexis's like Log4j course and all that. Like, so I try to like keep up with what's happening on there, and then also I'm not like doing a concentrated study on it, even though I probably should. But the web app course, the web app penetration testing course, study that.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is on the job training. A lot of what I'm learning, we'll share a screen when we find something interesting, and we'll teach the rest of the team, or we'll just show the rest of the team what we're doing. And I've learned so much that way. I'm like, wow, I did not think to take that route. I wouldn't have thought to take that route. And then I'll like dive into that a little bit.
That's interesting. And maybe, maybe good advice for others who are watching this, and whether they're studying or whether they're, like you, kind of on the job training, that I think I would say from a quasi outsider, being a quote hacker or being in cyber can be perceived as like a lonely job where you're like at a desk by yourself, like but it sounds like really relying on the community and on colleagues and this sense of like leaning on one another and really having these strong relationships is vital.
Yeah, spot on. And I don't know why I didn't mention that as something that I didn't expect, because just spot on. I think when I was envisioning it, I feel like I was envisioning someone giving me like a scope in a few days and then saying, okay, see you later. But that's not the case at all, at least not with my team. We are very collaborative. And when we're stuck, we ask each other. And even when we're not testing, we just have a standing call going on all day where we are just building rapport, building our trust with each other, laughing all day. It's a lot more fun than I expected.
I love that. I'm gonna steal that for your biggest surprise. We're gonna gloss over what you said earlier, which I don't remember, but we're gonna say your biggest surprise is it's a lot more fun than you expected, right?
Yes, we'll say that.
Yeah. So I think that the perceptions of the industry and the careers maybe are very different than the reality, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm just not sure what I expected. I really am not. It's just fun. It feels like a healthy day job. And
that's the goal we're all shooting for.
Yeah, right. It's not always been the case, and in multiple fields, and it's pretty cool feeling like there's at least some kind of healthy balance there.
Well, congratulations for striking that, girl, because that is like the unicorn out there. Armand Narang asks, what are your go-to study strategies? I always feel distracted by different courses while doing another one. That probably makes me feel burnt out pretty soon while studying. And I'm going to add a little something here. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with I'm just adding this to show that I am very much relate with Armand. I don't know if you're familiar with the eat the frog method of like doing things, right? So I was like a couple weeks ago, I'm like, I'm gonna like redo my whole to-do list, right? This is a thing where you absolutely put the thing that's toughest, right? Your frog, you do it at the beginning of the day. And I sit down on my computer and I literally started Googling how to draw pictures of frogs because I was like, I think I will label my frog first, right? I think I'll label what's my frog. And so I'm like doing, and like an hour goes by. I'm like, really, Catherine? Really? That's not the point of this. So I get it, right? Like when you're doing something, like you can get easily distracted by the outside world, by other courses, by other stuff in your job. Even when you're trying to focus, you're like, oh, okay, let me just Google how to draw a frog. Like what are your go-to strategies for overcoming these kinds of distractions?
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that too. I have a very difficult time with focus and prioritizing and just like finishing things. It'd be nicer to be better at that. But right. Something that my coworker recommends all the time, James, shout out to you. It's the Pomodoro Method. which is, sitting down for 30 to 50 minutes with a timer and then taking that 5 or 10 minute break respectively. And doing that, I guess I'll draw back to my experience with the EJPT, and I often talked about how I would binge and then I would take a long break, and then I would binge and then take a long break, and how I finished that was I took a full month and I was like, at the end of this month, I am going to take this test and I am going to pass it. What do I need to do? So every night after work, I set aside 2.5 hours that I was going to do something. I was going to learn something, and it didn't matter what it was. I was going to make progress, and it had to be in this course because that's what I told myself I was going to do. I have a hard time keeping on one course as well. So that's why I'm drawing to this one. But that's really what worked. And now I'm thinking about it, I should just pick that up again. That's great advice, Lily.
That's great advice. I think I'll take my own advice there. There you have it.
Easier said than done.
Right. What was the name of that method that you got it?
Pomodoro.
Pomodoro.
So it's like a little tomato.
Yes. It's the name of one of my favorite restaurants in New York, by the way. Pomodoro's. Totally separate subject. Awesome. All right. So we have another question in here. Let's see. What has been the most difficult thing to overcome on your journey to working in the cyber industry?
It sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's the imposter syndrome, putting myself out there. There's been so many times where I'm like, I don't deserve to say anything. I don't know anything at all. I am just a big dumb dummy just walking around and pretending. But I think that's been the biggest thing. Like, anytime I post on, say, LinkedIn or heck, even Twitter sometimes, I'm like, gosh, who gave me the right? Like, who am I to say I want to be a pen tester? Who am I to say that I want to go out and do these things? And I think there's times where I just had to suppress that little part of my brain that told me not to say anything, because saying something, communicating, and talking to other people is what helped me bridge that gap and make it into the industry.
I want to get back to that because you've mentioned it a couple times, how putting something out there, how you put it out there, right? I don't know if you did this intentionally or if you can look back and say, that was really an important tip, but how important was it to verbalize and write down your goals and put them out there for the universe to see?
For me, I don't think it would have happened otherwise. I really don't. So it was intentional. So back in 2020, I actually had this little list in how I was going to make it into the industry based off of what I was seeing other people doing. And one was writing a blog and just telling people that I want to be there, or else how would they know? And just talking to people in general, getting their advice, getting their feedback. And then even, once I was putting myself out there, there were people that were coming along that, maybe were 1, 2, 3 steps behind what I had done, that asked for my advice on those first few steps, and talking to them. And honestly, a lot of those people surpassed me. So shout out to y'all. Y'all were an inspiration to me, and you still are. But I don't know. It's just learning that with those beginners, my words do hold value at some level, and they're worth saying. And I think just having that stuff out there obviously increased my visibility, which helped me a lot. And I would recommend that to anyone, because I think something that was a barrier to me as well is I was like, well, there's already so many blogs out there. There's nothing that I can say that hasn't already been said, but I can say it in a way that connects with someone. I can say it on this platform that is different than the others, and it might cross someone's path that needs to see it. And so just taking that mindset shift, as opposed to like, everything's already out there, what's the point? And then just changing it a little bit helped a lot.
Yeah, and you just in general have a very refreshing way of viewing things, and then of explaining them. And I could see that passion. I mean, it takes a lot of courage, right? It takes bravery to put your goals out there long before you achieve them, right? Like looking back, you could say, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I could definitely put out there like 2 years ago that I would be a pen tester, or that I was going to be in cyber or whatever. And, now, like, look, you've managed to do it, but when you're sitting on the other side of it, right, with like this big hill to climb, it can be very intimidating and take a lot of courage to vocalize this massive goal that you're trying to hit, right?
It's daunting. It is so daunting. The whole internet can see that. That's scary. They can pull that apart if they want to.
Oh yeah, they can. And I mean, the internet is a scary place sometimes. I don't mean cyber wise. I mean like people wise. Like, it's scary, right? But congrats to you for doing that. For having the courage to do that and really putting yourself out there. I guess before we wrap up, I just wanted to, and I've kind of already asked this, what advice would you give, someone, your younger self or something, but I guess, what is there anything that you would do different in your journey so far? I mean, you're still at the very beginning, but even now, is there anything that you would do differently?
This is it's gonna sound like so dumb, but I just wish I learned more. I wish such a bad advice, because I would like binge and then burn out. But I wish I had taken better notes. I wish I had a better system for that. And I wish I had set specific habits that would have allowed me to just revisit things more often. If that makes sense. Take good notes.
That's a great answer. I think that's a great answer, and absolutely, I'm sure helpful for many people who are watching. We titled this stream "A Seat at the Table," and it was initially it was called "A Seat at the Table: A Conversation with Lily Clark," and as we were kind of finalizing the description and going through and adding subtitles and stuff, I don't know why the line came to me, but I was thinking of you, and I was like, we should, as a subtitle, put "Pulling Up Your Own Chair," because that's what I really feel like you have done in this industry. You have not just taken a seat at the table, you've like grabbed and been like, excuse me, I'll be sitting right there. Thank you. Like you have not waited for there to be an empty seat. And I just have so much admiration and respect for the way that you've gone about pursuing your goals. And, I think people can learn a lot from your story. I really do.
Thank you. Thanks, Catherine.
and you're all over social, and you're very, very much in community. So I would encourage everyone who's on this stream to follow Lily and engage in community, because really, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her enthusiasm. Give her a glass of wine. She becomes a whole different person. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Awesome. Well, Lily, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up here?
Make sure you are using multi-factor authentication on all platforms.
And you're officially a cyber pro. There you go. See, no cyber pro can get off a stream without saying that. I love it. Lily, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your story and your candor and just your personality Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate you.
You will be back. You will be back. And thank you to everyone who is watching. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. That's going to wrap up our stream for today. We will be live again next Tuesday, March 22nd, for another story you'll want to see. And here's, speaking of familiar faces, we're sitting down with Lola Coreno, aka Cyber Lola. She is I&E security operations expert. She has a fascinating story. I was blown away when I heard her story. You will be too. She also has some pro tips that you're not going to want to miss. So we're going to sit down with her next Tuesday, March 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Be sure to like and subscribe on the social media platform you're using so you can stay in the loop for details on our next stream when we do go live and get those notifications that pop up. As always, bring your questions. We'll see you next time. Until then, have a great week.